Sam Likely is calling me again.
Sounds urgent.
Yes, very urgent. I don't know how to hang up on this phone like as easily on my other one.
Can you keep a secret? How about 8 sets of secrets? If so, leave a comment below. Oh, wait here. Well, whatever. You don't really have to tell me, because I'm going to tell you all about these secret societies anyways. Today, we're going to be looking at 8 sets of secret societies littered throughout the Cosmere, compiling information on each one, and discussing what role they might play in the future of the books. Since this is my first video unconfined by one specific planet, how about we start with one that isn't based on any particular planet at all? The 17th Shard is one of the most secretive institutions in the entire Cosmere. We know almost nothing about them and have seen very few of their members make an appearance. However, we do have a precious few threads of information to pull at. While their goals are unknown, they are quite dedicated to non-intervention between shards and go out of their way to try to stop Hoid from interfering among them. Their members appear to be gathered from diverse reaches of the Cosmere, with the 3 that we see in a Stormlight interlude originating on 3 separate planets, Sel, Scadrial, and Taldane. Though this is unconfirmed, they also probably have some sort of connection with the dragon named Frost, who appears only in semi-canonical short stories and Stormlight epigraphs. In this excerpt from Words of Radiance, he speaks with Hoid about his theories of non-intervention, echoing those espoused by known members of the 17th Shard. The organization is based in a mysterious city in the cognitive realm known as Silverlight. Unfortunately, it looks like we'll have to wait a while to find out more, but they have been confirmed to play a large part in the later books set within the Cosmere. So, in the meantime, we'll keep a keen eye out for them and hope some of their motivations are expanded upon soon. Moving on. First and foremost, the Airi is weird. Like, weirder than the others weird. As far as I can gather, they were all citizens of Elantris that then passed on and became cognitive shadows. The ones we've seen have silvery, slightly glowing skin like the Elantrians, but are so ancient that at first glance seem to not be human at all. We have only gotten brief glimpses of them throughout the books, and most of what we know comes directly from Mistborn, Secret History. In this book, we see them at the edge between the cognitive realms of Scadrial and some other planet, presumably Sel. In fact, I'm going to assume that it is definitely Sel. This fortress is made up of glowing light, with some sort of power conduit running from Sel, and probably receiving power from the door. That is to say, the currently vessel-less shards of Dominion and Devotion that have also been trapped in the cognitive realm. Since we're focusing on the bigger picture in this video, I'm not going to spend too much time on the mechanics of this, but in a future video I have plans to talk about Selish magic and some theories surrounding the planet itself. Interestingly, their members keep a lookout for Shades, a type of cognitive entity based out of Threnody, implying that all 3 of these planets somehow border each other in the cognitive. One of the higher-ups in the ranks of the Airi, and possibly the leader of the aforementioned fortress, was plotting to take up the power of the Shard Preservation, whose vessel was waning and probably about to die. This plan, however, was foiled by the protagonist of Mistborn Secret History, and this is the last we see or hear from the Airi in that book. We haven't seen any real big picture plans of the Airi so far in the Cosmere, but their presence has been noted in other books. One of their members even pops up briefly in the Stormlight archive. He lives in a lighthouse within the cognitive realm of Roshar, and is in possession of a glowing orb that probably contains some sort of distilled fortune. Put in simpler terms, a way of seeing the future. Yeah, your guess is as good as mine on this one. I have no clue what this guy is doing on Roshar. However, while we are on Roshar, the Sons of Honor are an organization dedicated to, you guessed it, honor. Specifically, inciting his return, because that guy is super dead. The way they want to accomplish this is questionable at best. By ushering in a new desolation on Roshar and just kind of hoping honor shows up again to stop odium? I mean, he has to, right? Right? You might be able to guess this, but this does not add up to the most solid plan. And yet, the Alethi King Gavilar was one of the main driving forces behind the Sons of Honor's rise to power, going so far as to recruit other members of the Alethi nobility, Meridus Amaram included. Their leader's name is Restares, a shadowy figure that is, at least on the surface, completely dedicated to the return of honor. Without giving away too many spoilers, I'll just say that he is not the most sound of mind. At the beginning of Way of Kings, they are in the prime spot to bring their plans to fruition, with King Gavilar Khalan at their head and the full might of a united Alethkar behind them. This organization takes quite a few interesting twists and turns throughout the Stormlight Archive series, but I'm going to have to let you discover those for yourself. Rest assured, they are one of my favorite secret societies. They're also the one that feels the most like it could exist in our world, despite how much magic is involved with their organization. Next up in our discussion, they are secretive, they are political, and they're the Rosharan version of paralegals that can fly around like Peter freaking Pan. I am talking, of course, about I struggled quite a bit as to whether or not to put this group on our secret society's list. On the one hand, they were historically an order of the Knights Radiant, a group of Surgebinders dedicated to Roshar's defense against odium, and they operated completely out in the open. On the other hand, they went underground when every other order gave up their powers after the Recreants, and have operated in the dark ever since. I decided to count them among those on this list because of how long they have operated in the dark, and due to who their current leader is, which we won't get into since this video is spoiler-free. They traditionally followed oaths dedicated to the law, both upholding and interpreting them, and took great care to operate within its bounds. Its members attain the surges of gravitation, allowing them to change the direction gravity points for them, and division, which we don't know much about, but presumably lets them, I don't know, break stuff. I've seen a theory that this surge allows them to shoot lightning, which would make sense given their names, but we haven't seen this happen in the books. I won't spoil what their current role is, but traditionally the Order of Skybreakers is there to uphold the laws of whatever realm they are in, and to generally keep law and order. If you've read through at least Oathbringer, this guy named Me has a cool video on all of the Orders of Knights Radiant and what they all can do. You can check it out in the top corner of this video or in the video's description. Now that I've gotten my obligatory shameless self-promotion out of the way, let's move on to our next Rosharan secret society. As a heads up, every section from here on out contains at least light spoilers for some books, but I'll let you know what books beforehand, and I've added chapters in the bio of this video so that you can gleefully skip around without having to worry about spoilers for books you haven't read yet. This particular section contains some light spoilers for the Way of Kings, but not about anything super plot heavy. If you'd like to skip around, here's a few seconds to pause the video and skip to the chapter you want. Okay, ready? Moving on. The diagram was conceived, founded, and its guiding text written all in a single day and all by a single person, King Taravangian of Kharbranth. A kindly old man on the outside, Taravangian is an absolutely ruthless pragmatist dedicated to saving Roshar, and whose intelligence was boosted to an insane level with the help of the shard cultivation herself, though only on, like, particular days. The diagram is both an insanely complicated text that he wrote, as well as the name of the secret society itself. He and his followers use the text as a literal diagram for how to save Roshar from completely falling to Odium, who seems poised to bring about a new desolation and end Rosharan civilization as the characters now know it. It is unknown how the other Cosmere secret societies view the diagram, and as far as I can recall, we've never seen it mentioned by anyone outside of the organization. It's kind of insane to me that nobody else in these other societies knows of its existence, but apparently this is a very well-guarded secret. Other than saving Roshar, the diagram does not have any concrete long-term plans, but it does boast a well-structured and very devoted hierarchy of servants. It sure would be a shame if the organization were to be, I don't know, say, taken over by someone with less than noble intentions and far too much power for their own good. But, I mean, that's not gonna happen, right? They're unaware of other inhabited planets in the Cosmere, and unaware of any other secret organizations, save for the possibility of the Sons of Honor. And this is unconfirmed, but it is very likely that Gavilar Kholin tried to recruit Taravangian at some point. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to a society that isn't based primarily out of Roshar. We didn't know much about their intentions until recently, but we learned quite a bit about them in Rhythm of War. Because of this, I'm going to tag this section for Rhythm of War spoilers. Go ahead and skip to the next section if you haven't read Rhythm of War yet. Okay, ready? The Ghostbloods are a relatively new organization in the Cosmere, and unlike the others, whose motivations appear to be based on politics, power, or nebulous unknown tenets, these folks are primarily concerned with something new and interesting: the economy of magic. More specifically, the ability to transfer Stormlight off-world, presumably to fuel other magic systems. Indeed, they have actively been bringing other types of investiture from off-world to Roshar. They bring Seance from Sel, Sand from Taldane, and AVR from the Dromonad system. Each of these different types of investiture serves a purpose, and taken together, they show that the Ghostbloods have no qualms about mixing investiture, and unlike the 17th Shard, no objections against interference. They actively turn and recruit members from other organizations, such as the 17th Shard, and do not bother with silly lesser matters such as, you know, morality. Their tactics are brutal, having tried to assassinate both Yasna Kholin and Shallan Devar at various points, though neither attempt was successful. Gavilar Kholin asks Seth as he is dying if it was the Ghostbloods leader, Thydakar, who was behind the assassination. I can't go too much into Thydakar in this video, but for those of you that have already figured out his identity, I have a video planned specifically for that character where I'm going to talk all about him. However, it is implied that Thydakar is suffering from some unknown ailment as the result of a very long life, and wants to use the Heralds as the way to gather more information regarding his condition and possibly find a cure. This could be considered their secondary objective, but I have a feeling that it is tied to the first in some way, shape, or form. After all, they most likely want their members to live for a while and are arming them to the hilt with different forms of investiture. Presumably they will all suffer from this ailment eventually, and having highly invested madmen running around the Cosmere serves no good. Just look at how dangerous Ashar is. Now, let's travel to Skadriel and take a look at an organization that I haven't seen talked about very often. Heads up for you folks, this section is going to have spoilers from Mistborn Eras 1 and 2. If you haven't caught up on those yet, I'd highly recommend you skip this section. Here's a few seconds to do so right now. Sweet. Let's begin. As with the 17th Shard, the Set is an organization that very little is known about. Presumably based primarily on Skadriel, their goals are to do something. Something evil. Like I said, we don't really know a whole lot about them. The thing that's most emphasized about their members is a weird devotion to a god named Trell, which is one of the gods Sazed preached about to Vin in Era 1, and was more likely than not eradicated from the public consciousness as a result of one of the Lord Ruler's religious purges. Many fans have speculated that this Trell figure is actually just one of the Shard Autonomy's avatars, which would appear to line up with everything we know about them. Indeed, some of the Khandra being controlled by this Trell have been spiked by an unknown god metal, and by process of elimination, Autonomy seems to be the most likely culprit. They're also kidnapping Mistings, possibly to create a Mistborn to some gruesome, unknown end, I guess? We'll be keeping a close eye on this group and their Mistborn shenanigans, and they should be showing up again soon in the last Wax and Wane book, so make sure to check back in when that is released. In the meantime, let's look at a group that we have received a good amount of information on. I wasn't sure whether to tag this one for spoilers or not because there are only light spoilers, but hey, why not? Stormlight Archive spoilers up till Dawnshard, but only extremely light ones. The Sleepless, or Dacian Amiens as they are known in some parts of Roshar, are super fun people to talk about, mostly because they're not actually people at all. They're actually hordes of crab-like creatures that act as a hive mind and knit thousands of themselves together to form the shapes of other beings. They did not originate on Roshar, but definitely lived primarily in Amia during the first desolations. An interesting fact that was dropped by Brando Sando right after Dawnshard came out is that the Dacians' hordlings resembled spiders upon arrival to Roshar, but they self-selectively evolved over the years to appear akin to Kremlings. This allowed them to better blend in with the native fauna. They can communicate with themselves and other Sleepless over vast distances, but this does have limits as to how far the communication networks are affected. Those we've seen so far have grand plans, none other than preventing the destruction of worlds. We've seen them guarding incredibly powerful magical objects in the hopes that they would never be used again, but it is unclear how they came into possession of these objects or just how trustworthy they are at the task of keeping them safe. Apparently, there are at least a few different factions among the Sleepless, and it is unclear if all of them want the same thing but are divided on the details, or if they want separate outcomes entirely. We'll most likely be seeing them more and more as the Cosmere grows further interconnected, as we know that they are living on other worlds and are extremely Cosmere aware. According to Mr. Sando, they will have a rather large role to play in Mistborn Era 4, which is set primarily in a space opera setting. I absolutely cannot wait to see these hordes in a more prominent role in this universe, no matter how long it takes to get there. Each of these secret societies that I've covered are, well, still pretty secret. But this belies a greater truth that we should keep in the back of our minds. These organizations' goals and actions are not so secret, and each of them are in some way tied together. Indeed, we can count on these societies to butt heads and intermingle in the future, forming a more interesting, less secretive conflict throughout the Cosmere. And the less secretive these societies become, the more outright conflict will inevitably bubble to the surface, mixing diverse magics and peoples together into interesting new combinations and factions. As worlds come together, so will these societies, and the consequences will be absolutely fascinating to watch. Okay folks, that about wraps up this episode. I put out a poll last year on what videos you'd like to see, and this was by far the most voted for option. I'm going to have more polls in the future to help you guys decide the future of the channel, so make sure to stay tuned and keep an eye out for those. I also have some videos on real-world history planned, as well as a few other surprise one-off episodes up my sleeve that I'll be rolling out throughout the year. But this doesn't mean I'm ditching the Cosmere. Far from it. I have some super fun Cosmere Connections episodes planned for 2021, and I can't wait to get those out to you folks. Rust and ruin, I've had fun rambling about all this with you, and hopefully you've had even half that fun watching. I'd kindly remind you to like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for some quality posting as well as general updates. I also just got an Instagram to better disseminate my creme posting. Links to those two are in the bio. I'll see you there. Stay safe out there and have a fantastic day, folks.